When the telephone rang at the White House, it was the Kremlin on the other end of the line. President Putin rang President Obama to discuss the Ukraine crisis and the fight against ISIL. The conversation followed a dire warning at a NATO defense ministers meeting that Moscow is not done in eastern Ukraine. Military chiefs predicted a new risk of heavy fighting despite Kremlin denials of direct involvement. CCTV's Jack Barton reports.
From tripling the strength of NATO's rapid response force to the deployment of hundreds of US armoured vehicles to European countries bordering Russia, the Kremlin was the clear focus of a two-day NATO summit in Brussels. Though the US Secretary of Defense said America's deployment of tanks and artillery to Europe was purely defensive.
I described the new US strategic approach to aggressive and threatening behavior by Russia, an approach that is both strong and balanced.
Tensions between NATO and the Kremlin stem from the conflict in Ukraine. NATO's Secretary General said ceasefire violations continue in eastern Ukraine and warned there is still a risk of a return to heavy fighting.
Ukraine is faced with heavily armed separatists supported and trained and equipped by Russia.
Moscow denies its troops are on Ukrainian territory and has accused NATO of stoking tensions. NATO allies also discussed nuclear preparedness on Thursday after the Kremlin announced it would add 40 nuclear missiles to its arsenal. NATO is also concerned about the increased frequency with which nuclear-capable Russian planes are skirting the airspace of member states, sometimes carrying out mock bombing runs. The meeting also touched on other hotspots, including Afghanistan, where violence has flared since NATO ended all combat operations. And there was a commitment to send trainers to Iraq for the first time in 4 years as the fight against ISIL intensifies. Jack Barton, CCTV, NATO headquarters in Brussels.